Hello, everyone. My name is Frank Candido. I handle investor relations at NuRAN Wireless Inc. I have Jim Bailey with us today, coming live from just outside of London, and our CFO, excuse me, and Francis Letourneau, CEO, coming to you just outside of Quebec City. Welcome, guys.
Nice to have this video call during summer, Frank.
Yeah,
It's good to see you, Frank.
so let's just get right into it. I mean, we've got lots of emails, a lot of negative emails, some positive, but mostly negative, lots of questions. And so we're going to try to deal with the most important issues that we sort of filtered through, coming from our shareholders and also, from our point of view. So I guess the first thing is, last quarter was a tremendous quarter in terms of the company. It was a major turning point. We achieved EBITDA positive. The share price looked to react positively for at least a short period of time, and now we're back down. So we've achieved this EBITDA positive, and what does that mean for the company in terms of going forward, and what type of doors does that open for us? Francis, Jim, whoever wants
Yeah.
to start.
I will start and then Jim will dive a little bit more into the numbers. But what it allows us to do, being EBITDA positive, first of all, has allowed us to go back and ask for a second drawdown for Signum, even if the number of sites that was supposed to be delivered beginning of the quarter was not there yet. Especially because of this, it allows us also to regain momentum with the equity players for the Africa equity that we're looking forward to enable the long-term debt facility to finance 1,000 plus sites that we've announced last summer. And it also opened doors to some refinancing players or Canadian institution to look forward to refinance the short-term debt. We'll be more vocal about this later on in the process. Jim?
Yeah, sure. I agree. It was a major turning point for the company. I think the way the business that we have, this is an infrastructure business. Once you build the business, you build that recurring revenue stream. So it's very important to pass that threshold. The one thing I would say, is that the Q1 number was helped by our one-off equipment sales. And so what we look for is, recurring revenue from the network as a service business, because that's the most important element. Now, saying that, even covering the operating expenses, which is what EBITDA positive means, we can't forget about the build. And so we need to continue to build to get the recurring revenue up and also to generate enough cash to, service our debt and all of those good things. So as much as it's positive to reach that threshold and does all these things in terms of financing, we do have to keep financing the company. And that's why we have been doing some of the things that people were asking about.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Jim. Yeah, it's important. Obviously, we've always said that scale was important. We've had a lot of negative reaction, in terms of, from shareholders, in terms of we're not building fast enough. We're not hitting targets that we've laid out in terms of build, et cetera. Maybe can you just address that very quickly?
Yeah, we can. So the numbers have not been met, but they will be met over the next few months for multiple reasons. But the main ones were, of course, material availability, so reception, custom clearance, that kind of thing. And also managing cash as well, because the funding of the build was, let's call it secured, but still we're missing $1.5 million of drawdown of the Signum facility that has been slow, that has been delayed and should happen soon. But we've been able to manage to continue to build with the cash generated by our operation, like Jim was saying, on the financing side. So yes, it has been slowed down, but it's coming, and this is the level that we want to get to keep this EBITDA positive momentum moving forward. But the capacity and the number of site deliver over the last couple of months demonstrate that we have the capability to do it. And we can crank up the numbers because we've not enabled all the service supplier to continue to build at a faster pace. But of course, we had to manage everything related to cash, related to all of those inputs that we were seeing. Just the DRC container that we said we would send 21 towers to Cameroon to maintain the build. It was supposed to take a month or two, but it took 5 months to get it to the country for multiple reasons. So we had to manage this. We had backup plan. We've used some of our suppliers from Canada to do it. So we've maintained all this flow of constant build with all those burden that were coming to us. So the team has been managing it pretty well, knowing all those inputs and outputs that came in from the market.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've shown that scale is important. We've shown that the sites actually not only generate revenue, but generate profitability, and the payback is very quick. And we've shown that we have the ability to build more sites as long as the cash is available. So with all that in mind, then why is that not reflected in the share price? Because I'm looking at the share price like everyone else, and I see the share price going the opposite direction to what we think. So I think we all know why this is happening. Maybe you want to just address this clearer for our shareholders, not only in terms of why it's happening, but what is the plan to stop this from happening, more importantly.
Jim, I'll let you drive this one.
Let me take that one. I think one of the issues, and people have said, why are you're issuing stock that's, creating dilution, and that's putting downward pressure, and also the prospect of more stock being issued. I just want to talk a bit about our factoring agreement because there's been a lot of comments around that. What we have done with the factoring agreement, and it's important to understand this because one of the things we've actually been doing is talking to our auditors in Quebec because we're looking at ways to finally wind this up and looking at all the accounting of it. What we did with the factoring is we actually borrowed against intercompany invoices. So we borrowed against invoices that we issued from Canada to ourselves, to our 100% owned entities in Africa. Right off the bat, they said, wow, that's something that we don't often see, but that's the type of risk our investor took, but also the faith they have in the business and the ability to repay. So it made a lot of sense commercially because we know when we start to generate more cash in Africa, we can upstream that to Canada, and that's one way to repay the factoring. But the other so that's one, there's a certain amount of risk. The other thing is it has this conversion feature. The conversion price on the factoring is actually priced above market. And so it's a classic convertible issuance in a way where you price the stock above market because we believe the stock price should be higher. And in return of the option of being able to convert to stock, you set an interest rate that is more reasonable than what the market might demand if it was just standalone debt. So we get the best of both worlds from a convertible loan. We do have to convert that stock because, as we're saying, the money that we generate in Africa is going towards the build. So we've got burn and expenses in Canada, and that's what we're using the factoring to help fund. Now, it looks on the books like a big number, and we know, and we've said this time and again, we know the strain that it puts on, the P&L, and the strain that it puts on the business and the share price for that matter. So we are working to try to refinance that. And we have some plans underway to do that. And we believe that actually, in the process of refinancing that, we'll be able to do so at a lower value than what we carry on our books. So the interest charges are high, that they're there, and that's really giving the investor that coverage, that security, while their debt is outstanding. But when it comes time to sort that out, we think we can make gains, and there'll be book gains that we'll be able to pass on. And we'll also, and maybe Francis wants to talk a bit about some of the things that we're doing, but we'll also take away that overhang, that conversion possibility that always puts pressure on the share price, knowing that there's going to be future dilution.
Mm-hmm. So two things about this. So yes, it could be seen as a risk, and the constant share issuance is putting pressure on the offer on the market. So it's tough to swallow all of those shares. So this we understand, but it's also a risk that the factor is taking. It's an equity risk, if we can say it like this. But also remember that we failed in closing a large facility which was contemplated with EIB because of the constant delay in the licensing in DRC. And this has caused tremendous pressure for cash within the company. And the convertible debenture and factoring agreement allowed us to stay on board and to continue our not only our dream, but our goal to make this company a successful company. So yes, it's not without some challenges, but those challenges we are currently working really hard to overcome. And one of the way is to refinance this short-term debt, especially the ones secured that are causing that many conversion at this point. And this is growing or going quite well. So we've reached a point where we've made available data rooms to some of Canadian institutional investor to come up with a facility that will make a cleaner balance sheet for NuRAN, but also give us more time to repay. And we're contemplating some kind of vehicle that will be extremely friendly to the company moving forward. So EBITDA positive, combined with the fact that we've reached a certain level, we have this number of sites that we're reporting on the monthly progress report. And by the way, we will continue to report there simply because we cannot divulge on the market confidential information. This is something imposed by the mobile network operator, but also us. We divulge competitive information to our competitors. And this is something we would like to avoid as much as possible moving forward. So from a reporting point of view, NPR, quarterly financials, and of course, if something is showing up as a material news, then we'll come up to the market with this. But those videos and some promotional stuff is going to come as well. So we'll talk about this, but definitely we are addressing this now. It will keep us busy for the summer. Big time. So Jim is fully busy. Sébastien Bourillon is helping a lot. So we've engaged with a couple of partners and it's going along quite well. So maybe we'll be in a much different situation by year end once we have resolved this situation.
Okay, so Francis, listen, thank you for that. I mean, I've been involved in some of those meetings, so I can, concur that those meetings are progressing. And certainly if we could deal with that. I mean, we've shown that the other part of the equation works, and if we can deal with that, it would certainly open the door and maybe have some happy shareholders finally in this company. So let's hope we can actually get that done. I just want to address two quick things. They were not part of the script, but you said that we failed to close AIB. Can you just elaborate quickly on, did we fail to close AIB, or was AIB simply a failure? Just like that, number one.
Yeah, so the EIB, not A, but EIB, European Investment Bank, is a really large organization, such as World Bank. So we're a small entity. So running after this large debt that was supposed to be quick, and this is what we were told at the beginning, happens to be extremely complicated, especially from a regulatory compliance perspective. EIB's analyst has been pushing really hard for us to get this infrastructure license that we are currently getting. And it took a while to get that. And the time went by, and at a stage where we jointly agreed that it was no longer making any sense to continue this thing, because otherwise we would have probably have to reapply completely not standards, but conditions were evolving and it was being more and more complicated. So we decided to walk away from this facility jointly. It was not a no or something like it was really that we walked away and happened Signum in the interim that gave us the room, the breathing to restart building and regain momentum for other facility. So the fact that we're small, the fact that there was regulatory requests from them, so we focused on something totally different, and I think it's paying off these days.
Okay, and so there's no risk that we're not going to get the final payment from Signum at this stage. There's nothing to worry about there.
No, no, no,
Okay.
no.
No.
There's nothing to
Okay.
worry about. We were expecting that end of June, but it's being managed as we speak. Jim, you wanted to say?
I just want to speak to that a bit too. I mean, one of the things that we were able to do with Signum is with the funding is for Cameroon and DRC from Signum, we were able to untie the two so that as soon as we met the conditions in Cameroon, we could draw down and fund that business. We've been able to draw more, and now we have the last bit to draw, which is partially tied. It's tied to a couple of things. One is, again, this DRC license, and it really speaks to the challenges in Africa. I mean, Francis talked about the delay in getting a shipment done. I mean, these are real issues and challenges, and you can only kind of do so much. And believe me, we're doing everything that we can. But these things do lead to delays. It's why telecom is not developed on the continent, quite frankly, because of some of these legacy issues. So the problem is time is our enemy, because the longer that it takes to do this, the more cash we're burning, the more time. So that's where it causes these financing issues. But we have Signum fully on board. We have a couple of ways to draw the last 1.5. And by the way, they've agreed, we're talking about extending the facility to go into Ivory Coast and Benin. So they're fully supportive, and they're actually talking to us about rolling over and extending that to go alongside the other debt that we have lined up. So we have not Signum, but also these Canadian parties, others that we've referred to, not by name, but talked about in our MD&A and our news releases, that are engaged. And passing that EBITDA positive threshold triggered it, and now we're in those discussions, and it's all moving forward. It doesn't happen as quickly as we would like. There's some extraneous factors that we can't manage, but it is moving forward. And that's why, Francis and I are still here, because we see the progress that we're making as others do, and we see what the potential of the business is.
Perfect. Okay, so two quick points, because last things that we should deal with, because we're getting a little long here. You mentioned, Jim, burn in Canada. So often, and again, this was not on the script, a lot of people say, oh, why don't they cut burn in Canada? Why don't they cut salaries? Why don't they cut people? Like, are we operating, is there fat in this company at this stage? Are we operating with the minimum amount of people? Like, can you just address that for the shareholders, please?
It's something we have ongoing discussions with our financiers, our factor, our lenders, our new investors. We've been reducing costs over time. We've as much as we can to the bare bone. But there's a few critical things that we need to do. One of the important things to know about the model we work with is we have limited teams on the ground. The type of business that we have, you don't need a lot of people. So we have support coming from Quebec, network operations, network planning, procurement, all of those things, as well as R&D. And one of the things that we found about owning our technology, owning the equipment, is that as we need to make changes and adapt to conditions and so on, we can enhance in real time and quickly and build, solve problems and keep the revenue flowing and increase the revenue and throughput of our technology. So all of those things we look very critically at constantly. Can we reduce costs? Can we make our lives easier? And that's really where we are now. But the way we're structured, there will be burn, and there will be things that we have to cover. And then we have to build. We have got to build, and we know that, and it's our primary focus, because we know that is the path to the future of this business. And, we've built a fraction of the sites that we have under contract. It's worth remembering that. So, once we've passed this threshold with a very small number of the sites under contract, it just means a lot more for us in the future.
Mhm.
Okay, one last point then that we should deal with because I get this a lot. Things look good, future looks bright. You're in the midst of talking to people about refinancing this debt, which could open the door for our share price to finally, breathe. Why aren't you buying stock? Why aren't you buying stock, Francis? Jim, why aren't you buying stock?
I'm getting this question quite often, and my response to this is our credit cards are full, our credit margins are full to help the company support our constant spending on various fronts. We've been having salary cuts as well over the last years that has been affected our ability to even pay our tax bill. So bottom line, we're fully committed to support this company, and just buying $10,000 of shares would not move the dial. So we are just in the midst of it. We strongly believe in what we do, but we put our energy somewhere else. So buying shares, I could do, but at the level we are today, with limited access to cash ourselves, knowing that our salary has been cut, so it's tough for us to get this constant buying from management.
Jim, you want to add something there?
No, it's true. It's exactly as Francis said. In terms of critically looking at our cost base, one of the things we look at is ourselves and what can we do to trim the fat and secure the future of the business. And yes, I agree. I would love to buy stock, but the amounts that we could do wouldn't change the picture, we don't think. Hopefully this gives some faith that we're fully supportive, we're fully behind the company, and we're doing all we can to get there. And the results should show that as well. And as the cash frees up and our positions change, we'll look at buying on the market too. So, but it's as Francis said, it's we've got a lot of things to juggle and it's a lot of priorities to balance, and we're doing what we believe is best for the company at the moment.
Okay, I think we're good for today. I encourage our shareholders, stakeholders, and anyone interested in the company to continue to send your questions by email to myself, to Jim, to Francis, to all of us if you'd like. Some questions we can answer immediately, other questions we cannot answer for obvious reasons. But we do our best to answer them, and we will address some of the general questions that a lot of shareholders have in videos such as these. I wish both you and Jim, you and Francis, the best of luck in crossing the finish line on refinancing this debt, because to me, would be the most tremendous news for this company going forward. Continue to build sites as quickly as you can. Today is July 17th. My name is Frank Candido. I handle investor relations. Jim Bailey, CFO, Francis Letourneau, CEO. Thank you all, and look forward to our next video.
Don't miss any news. Be sure to visit our website at nuranwireless.com to subscribe to our newsletter.